Hi, I'm Ben.
And I'm Lily. Today we're going to investigate the question, how is California agriculture unsustainable?
When California entered statehood in 1850, it was very sparsely populated. As the gold rush came to an end at the end of the 1850s, farming became prominent. California became a main exporter of wheat produced on large acreage farms, utilizing mechanization as much as possible. A decade later, California was further integrated into the U.S. economy through the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. Falling interest rates, which eased the cost of a farm's production, encouraged the shift to irrigated and labor-intensive fruit crops. These could then be dried or canned and shipped eastward.
Farmers in California took advantage of the switch to the new fruit crops. Vegetables, cotton, and sugar beets became increasingly important as the 20th century progressed. Livestock remained 1/3 of California's economy, compared to a half in most other states. This irrigation at a large scale occurred in two stages. The first from 1900 to 1920 because of private efforts, and the second from 1950 to 1970 as a result of public projects on the state and federal levels.
Over the course of the latter half of the 1800s, California became a leader in mechanized agriculture for a number of reasons, including the fact that its well-educated farmers had large acreages and capital. Wheat farmers discovered that they could use a plow to overturn a small layer of topsoil, thus acting as encouragement for Californian inventors to develop plows that could cover much more land than machinery in other states. Wheat was harvested the most efficiently in California, which paved the way for extreme agricultural and later urban development in the state.
Fast forward to modern times, and the development projects have averaged the consumption of 40,000 acres of agricultural land per year. 538,000 acres of land have been developed since 1990, which equates to about a sixth of the land urbanized since the gold rush. In conjunction with the use of pesticides, which California leads the United States in, this illustrates the degradation of soil and vegetation across the state. Over the past few decades, California has had to deal with tough droughts that affect millions of people as well as wildlife. These shortages of water will eventually lead to harsher climate change and ultimately desertification unless something is changed. California is no stranger to droughts, the worst arguably being from 2012 to 2016, which have led to water rationing while farmers and other businesses are using more and more of their water supply. It is predicted that the water supply will be taken from the state by 2040 if current usage levels continue. If past trends continue, the lack of water will make California uninhabitable due to its desertified climate and the inability of people to adapt. Since crops need a healthy water supply to thrive, there will be a great loss of Mediterranean climate agriculture, including grapes, olives, figs, pomegranates, citruses, and various nuts such as almonds. This would be detrimental to hundreds of thousands of people living not only in California, but throughout the United States.
Post-Gold Rush California became a main exporter of wheat through mechanized farming in the 1850s and fruit crops in the early 1900s. Over the last century, the country has gotten accustomed to California being the main exporter of these crops, the main reason for why there is an extremely high demand from the state. This demand is getting tougher and tougher to meet as desertification increases.
Desertification is defined as the process by which fertile land becomes desert, typically as a result of drought, deforestation, or inappropriate agriculture. Water scarcity in dry lands, such as California, limits the production of crops, livestock, and other resources. Desertification not only affects topsoil, surface runoff, groundwater reserves, human, animal, and plant life, but it is one of the main causes of the unsustainability of California agriculture. California has seen many factors that lead to desertification over the last few decades, including wildfires, droughts, and the overuse of water in certain crops. California wildfires are a direct cause of the destruction of arable land because of the amount of forest it dismantles. Likewise, a drought causes the soil to change because of the loss of its nutrients. The land is no longer able to be penetrated by rain and therefore kills plants and crops that need the water to survive.
California's water overuse is causing both sinking towns and arsenic pollution of water. The land below the farms in California is quite literally sinking. For over a century, farmers have been pumping water out of the ground, and in less than 100 years, the ground has sunk 8.5 meters. Each year, the ground sinks 30 to 60 centimeters. The pollution seeps into the water supply, not only making it non-consumable for humans, but for plants and animals as well. A second very important reason why agriculture in California is unsustainable is because of climate change. Food quality and quantity are directly affected by rising temperatures, extreme weather, and reductions in the availability of water. It is possible for higher temperatures and levels of carbon dioxide to yield more crops, but for that to happen, there must also be a surplus of nutrients and moisture in the soil, water availability, and other conditions. Frequent droughts, such as in California, pose a direct threat to the safety of crops.
The temperatures in Southern California have risen 3 degrees in the last century alone, and the region has experienced less rainfall as the years pass. The changing climate in the state has led to an increase of the need for water and the decrease in supply. A main reason for this is because the hotter air causes more groundwater to evaporate. On top of that, the rising temperatures increase the rate at which water is released into the air from plants, meaning that crops need more water. The fact that precipitation is slowing and evaporation is increasing makes the availability of water even less and a higher severity of droughts. Climate change is also a large contributor to the many wildfires that California experiences. 4% of California land has burned per decade since 1984. The vast extent of this is due to higher temperatures and droughts. More fires and drier conditions are direct causes of desertification in California. Many plants and animals are at the limit of what they can tolerate. A third contributor to unsustainable agriculture is overgrazing, which is excessive nourishment of grass from livestock, which damages the grassland. When plants are exposed to this extreme amount of grazing for a long period of time, they do not have sufficient amount of time to recover. Degradation of the land occurs. Most overgrazing is caused by livestock in agricultural areas that are poorly managed. They can tolerate temperature-wise, but the levels are still rising. When the temperature increases, plants release more water vapor into the atmosphere, thus requiring more water to survive. Water is being wasted as more and more is used just to complete the same job that a lesser amount of water did with lower temperatures. In California, a primary effect of unsustainable agriculture is wasted water. The state's multi-billion-dollar almond industry is an example of this. It takes about 16 gallons of water to produce 15 almonds, making almonds one of the most water-intensive plants in the state. This is an issue because of the 2 billion almonds being produced yearly in California. 23,000 acres of agricultural land has been diverted solely to almonds, but 16,000 of those acres were previously classified as wetlands. On top of this, some agricultural land has been converted from land for low water crops to land for almond use. For this transition to occur, millions of gallons of water had to be utilized.
Most almonds are grown in California's San Joaquin Valley. The ground here is already sinking because of the depletion of its groundwater, so many farmers are attempting to irrigate new orchards. This could directly affect the groundwater in the state, which would be devastating because of the population's reliance on groundwater for drinking water. There is an extremely high demand for almonds because of the variety of products almonds provide, and California single-handedly grows 80% of the world's almonds. To meet this demand, Californian farmers irrigate new land to make space for almonds, but in doing so, deplete groundwater resources. A vicious, unsustainable cycle of almond production is created.
A second major effect of unsustainable agriculture is food insecurity. Food insecurity is defined as a measure of the unavailability of food and an individual's ability to access it. As land is degraded, the security of food becomes an even more important issue. Since the practice of unsustainable agriculture leads to the loss of arable land, the productivity of farming is decreased, thus slowing how much food is actually produced. If less food is produced, less is consumed, creating the problem of food insecurity. California has many factors that contribute to the lack of consistent access to food through land degradation, including droughts and wildfires. These forms of erosion destroy arable land across the state, making it tougher and tougher to produce food. Shortages of fertile land and decreased productivity lead farmers to clear forests, have overgrazing livestock, and use pesticides and fertilizers. California is experiencing higher and higher demands of crops every year, so these practices are continuously seen.
Currently, in an attempt to produce the same amount of food annually, California farmers are using more resources than ever before, a third major effect of unsustainable agriculture in the state. Soil quality is depleted, and money and resources are used to irrigate land to make way for crops to be planted. 80 to 90% of California's water is used on irrigation and other agricultural practices. If farming was any more sustainable, water would be used much more efficiently as opposed to how it is being wasted today. Small improvements to modern-day farming practices could save tens of thousands of gallons of water and reduce the spread of agricultural land. On the other hand, if more resources were used to combat climate change, agricultural improvements would be made much easier. Plants wouldn't need nearly as much water, and droughts and erosion would not be as harsh.
Unsustainable agriculture is a very important topic because it affects people all over the world through food insecurity and water unavailability. California is a prime example of unsustainable agriculture because of its wasted water and loss of arable land. If this problem is not addressed, the food insecurity problem in the United States will get worse, as water scarcity will lead to many people not being able to obtain healthy food consistently. California's land will continue to be desertified as the food crisis unfolds if nothing is done.